So I'm going to present or talk about some of the benefits and challenges and considerations you might think through if you are interested in selling your own books online. Um, I've got kind of an outline here that I'm going to follow, but I don't really have like a slide or a presentation that I'm going to share my screen for. And if you have any questions as we walk down through this, just hit that little raise hand icon in the right-hand corner of your screen, and I'll see that, and I'll ask questions, and I'll pause every once in a while for questions as well. So one of the things that Nancy wanted to wanted me to talk about, because I think she's considering doing this and wants to kind of think through it, is what are the challenges and what are the benefits and considerations for yourself um, to selling your own books online, having your own store where you sell your own books and fulfill those books and do all of the things that basically Amazon or Ingram does for you whenever you list through their marketplaces. So that's something that I do personally, but I never really sat down and thought about what all that takes from the perspective of maybe someone who doesn't have a lot of technical aptitude or the ability to maybe figure all that out on their own. So I sat down and made an outline of some of the things that I thought would be benefits to people interested in doing that, would be challenges. And so just going to talk through those, and I'm sure that you guys will have questions, and so we'll leave some Q&A time at the end. So when you're considering selling your own books online, what does that mean? So what that means is basically if you are a self-publisher or you are aspiring to be a self-publisher, you create the content yourself, you compile it into a book, and then normally you would list it on a marketplace like Amazon KDP, or you would go through one of the other platforms like um, Ingram Spark, or there's a handful of other ones that would do the printing and fulfilling of the book for you. Um, all those marketplaces are fantastic because they're basically like turnkey operations for you to sell your books. You create the content, you compile it, and then you put it on their marketplace, and they list it to some extent. You go into their algorithm, they do some marketing for you. We could talk about that later, but um, you don't have to do any of the fulfilling. You don't have to order 400 copies of your book. You don't have to ship them out. You don't have to do any of that stuff. And that's what most people do. But there are some advantages to doing that yourself. And I think possibly the best approach would be to do a hybrid model of that. So do both and try both and see if you can um, figure out how to do it on your own. That way you can get the best of both worlds. So what are some of the benefits to creating your own online store through your website or some other options that I'll get to at the end? Basically selling books on your own. Well, the first one is basically you get to keep more money. So in order for Amazon or Ingram or some of the other places to list and support your book sales, they're obviously going to take a percentage of that. If you list your own books, you would buy bulk from whoever your printer is. You can buy bulk from Amazon. You can buy bulk from Ingram or any of the other printers or marketplaces that you go with. Let's just say you buy 50 copies of your books. And you buy those uh, basically at your cost. It's really inexpensive most of the times. I know for my books that are anywhere from 150 to 300 pages, I think it costs me like $2 or $3 per book. So it's really easy for you to buy a decent amount in bulk, and then you get those to your house or your office or wherever you're going to sell them. And you get to charge basically whatever you want. You get to keep all of the profits, and you're not paying anybody, any platform to do anything for you. So it's better. It's better on your profit ratio. You get to have control of all of the pricing structure of those books. So when you list a book on Amazon through KDP, you get to set that, but then Amazon comes in and takes their portion of that. And you don't have a whole lot of flexibility with doing things to sort of promote that price. They do offer, you can go in and change the price. They do offer a couple of marketing things where you can go in and set your book on sale for a certain time period or things like that. But you don't have a lot of flexibility with offering things like coupons or special discounts for this group, or maybe creating a special discount code or URL that you can give to this person if you go on their podcast. So if you do that, if you have your own shopping cart or platform, you have complete control over all of that stuff, pricing and coupons and marketing and all of that stuff. You have complete control of that. Whereas some of these other platforms, you don't have a lot of options. You're basically um, stuck with what they offer you. Um, I don't know how this works in Ingram. I'd have to look at it a little bit more, but I know with Amazon, um, you're paid in arrears, which basically, I believe it's either 60 or 90 days. I can't remember. But when you make a sale, you don't actually get that money until like 90 days afterwards. When you host your own shopping cart or you sell your books, you get paid the full profit right then when you make a sale. You're going to sell it for $20 and you have $3 in it and maybe $1 worth of marketing costs. Then you immediately pocket $16 profit right into your bank account. So that's a huge plus. You're not waiting on that money from those other platforms. And then the next benefit, and possibly the biggest one that I can think of, the most beneficial one, is you own all of the data for the sales that you make on your own platforms. Now, what I mean by that is when you make a sale on Amazon, you don't know who bought your book. You don't know where they came from. You don't know how they got there. You don't know anything about them. You just know you made a sale, and you don't get to keep any information. You don't reap the benefits of that information. You can't remarket to that person and say, hey, I'm making another book, stick with me for the next 3 months and it'll be released. You don't get really to do a lot of that stuff. Amazon does that for you. They keep and retain all that data. When you make a sale on your own platform, you know everything about that sale. You know where that person came from. You know how they got to your website. You know what pages they clicked on before they actually made a sale. You know how many times they visited, how many times it took them coming back before you made a sale. You get more often than not, you get marketing information on them. So you're going to get some demographic data, gender, you're going to get their email address. You're going to get a whole slew of information that you can use to make better decisions about how you market your book. You get demographic information. So you know the demographic split of who's coming and buying your books. If it's 70% female and 30% male, well, that will help you in marketing decisions, because now you know if I'm going to create a Facebook ad or do something else, then I'm going to create a Facebook ad targeted toward women because that's my demographic. So when you own your platform, you own the data. If you don't own the platform, you don't get the data. Um, then you have creative freedom to build the experience that you want with your sales funnel. I know that's a fancy term, but basically, you get the creative freedom to create the sales page, the layout of the page, everything from acquiring a customer to sales. You get to create that experience yourself. You get to tell them what you want. You get to show them the pictures that you want. You get to follow up with them to make sure that they're happy. You get to remarket to them, all that kinds of stuff that you get to do. With Amazon or Ingram or any of the platforms, You get to do a little bit of that. Like you can upload a few pictures. They're building some things that allow you to upload some more creative assets like short videos and things like that. But you're you're under their control as to what you can do. The images have to be the size that they say it. The videos have to be the length that they say. The assets have to be what they approve. The descriptions have to be what they approve. And so not your platform, not your data, you don't have control over it. If it is your platform, you can build the page, you can say whatever you want to say. You can create videos, pictures, whatever you want to do. You also have the ability to do to create the experience, the sales experience that you want. So if you want to slap 3 of your books together in a bundle, you can do that. Now you have limited ability to do that on Amazon because I think they allow you to create book bundles and sell them as well. But again, that's in their platform. So you're limited to what they allow you to do. On your own website, you could put all your books together and you can sell them. You can design a new package or a new bundle that has all of your books together. You can create your own box set. I mean, the sky is the limit when you're kind of doing it yourself. You're under nobody's creative thumb to do that. You can also offer various formats. So you could sell ebooks on your website. You can do paperbacks. You can offer hardbacks. You can do spiral bounds. You're not limited to what Amazon allows you to do. You can also offer, I'm thinking, John, the conversation we had the other day, you can offer upsells of digital products with your physical products, or you can offer upsells to your digital products with physical products. Someone comes along and buys one of your ebooks, or they buy an ebook bundle. Well, they just drop 30 or 40 bucks with you. You can send them a bonus copy of some other promotional material just because they bought your digital books. So you have just creative freedom to do any of that stuff that you want. You don't get some of that on some of these platforms when you go with Amazon. So those are the benefits that I can think of. Before I move on to the challenges, does anybody have any questions, input? Is there one big glaring benefit or pro that I missed that someone else is already doing?
Landon, I'm not gonna. In fact, I'm gonna retract my hand here because I think you're when you get into the cons, you're going to express what I'm about to ask. So I'll let you continue.
Okay.
And if you don't mention it, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me ask this question: Who is selling their own books on their own platform right now? So I only saw really like one hand go up. So not many people are. Okay, let me discuss some of the challenges and let me see if maybe some of those challenges strike a chord with you guys, and maybe we could talk about some of those in detail, because if there's just a quick count, there's 15 people on this call and only 1 or 2 people are selling their own books. I see Eileen's hand is up. Eileen, do you have a question, or were you just saying that you sell your own books? Maybe she hit it by mistake. If only like 2 out of 15 people are selling their own books, then there's got to be a reason why. So.
Sorry. I was just saying that my sister and I did some colouring books. We went to an ordinary printers, and there were spiral bound colouring books, and I'm selling those online on my website, but that's the only ones that I've been doing. And sometimes I do order my own copies to sell at craft fairs and that. And sometimes people ask me, could I post them to them myself, which I do. And I get paid then. But then, of course, you have to add in the postage and all that as well and sort that out.
Sure.
And with the
Yeah.
post the way it is at the moment, if you're sending it to someone in Australia or something, it might take forever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to hit on some of that stuff when I talk about the challenges, is
Okay.
talking through that stuff. Okay. Challenges. What are the challenges of selling stuff yourself? Um, well, I think probably the biggest one is, how do you do it? Like, there's technical challenges and how you do this yourself. Um, there are definitely technical challenges. You have to have a platform to sell them on. Now, I'm going to talk about some platform suggestions at the end that make it to where you don't necessarily have to have your own website in order to do this. But there are definitely technical challenges of knowing either how to incorporate a shopping cart into your own website, or how to navigate another platform that allows you to do that without a website. So there's definitely technical challenges with doing that. The other big glaring challenge that I see is probably a deterrent to people doing this on their own is the limited visibility that you do, or that you get when you do this on your own. So what do I mean by that? When you put your book into Amazon, it goes into their ecosystem. And Amazon, I don't know what their exact ranking is, but they're in the top probably 10, 25 trafficked websites in the entire world. Like, there's hundreds of millions of people going to that site, every week. There are already people there with buying intent to buy. And so when you take it upon yourself to sell on your own website, people are not already coming to your website to buy. So there's marketing issues. How do you get people to your website to buy your books? You're all kind of on your own in the vast ocean of the internet, trying to pull people into your own website to purchase your books. That's, besides the technical challenge, that's probably the second biggest deterrent for a lot of people, is who's going to buy my stuff? How are they going to find me? How am I going to find them? So that's a huge challenge for people to overcome to do it. And so Gordon's talked about, many times through his presentations, that overcoming that challenge is big, but it all really comes down to having a marketing strategy, having a marketing game plan, implementing that game plan, and just sticking with it. So what are you doing to pull people over to your website or to your platform to sell books? What are you doing through social media? What are you doing through video? What are you doing on your own website for organic search traffic, SEO? What content on other platforms are you putting out, and how are you funneling all those people back to your website? You're doing all that work. Whereas if you put your book on Amazon, they're doing some of that work for you. Now, you still have to do some marketing to drive traffic to your Amazon listing, but there is some of that going on in the background. And you can utilize their paid advertising platform to drive more traffic as well. So on one hand, you have all of these systems that are done for you, that are working currently. And then on the other hand, if you take it on yourself, you have none of those systems. You have to start those systems from scratch. Other challenges. When you sell your own stuff, then you have to think about all of the legal ramifications of doing that. So you're selling stuff, which means there are tax implications. There are postage and shipping implications, as Eileen just mentioned. You have to factor that in. How much does that cost? Most of the time you pass that cost on to the customer when they buy. And I don't know how it is overseas, but in the US, you can use things like media mail, which is a relatively cheaper way to send books. But you still have that added cost. Whereas in Amazon, most people, I would say a vast majority of people, are purchasing thing on Prime accounts where they don't necessarily pay for shipping, or it's a significantly discounted shipping just because Amazon has those partnerships. But not with you. You have to front the whole burden of that postal cost, or you pass that on to your customer. You are also the entire customer service team. With Amazon, you don't deal with any of that stuff. Shipping didn't make it, it's not on you. They fix that. It was damaged when it arrives to the person's house, you don't care. They fix that. They don't like the book and they want to return it, doesn't matter to you. They handle all of that. If you're selling this stuff yourself, you become all of that. You become your customer service, you become your returns department, you become the refunds department, you're the postman, you're everything, you're A to Z. So you have to think about some of those challenges and implications whenever you take some of that stuff on. Now, there are a lot of services in most shopping cart programs or sales platforms that make all of that stuff relatively easy to do. So you make a sale on your website, it goes into the platform. If someone wants to do a return, they create a return request or they email you and say, hey, this was damaged. You can issue a refund, usually with the click of a button. You can conduct customer service relatively easy via email or through a messaging platform, messaging features in the platforms. Most of that stuff, there are things in place that allow you to do that relatively easy, but it still comes down to you and your time to do that. So that's a big challenge and a consideration. Now, those are the four big ones that I hit on. Those probably strike a chord with you guys, and maybe there's some additional challenges, John, like you were talking about, I maybe not have addressed. So questions or comments on some of those things?
You hit them, Landon. That was the question I was going to ask.
Okay. I see Kim's hand waving there on screen. Go ahead.
Okay, hey, I think one of the things you're talking about, I know in my decision making on how much of this I'm selling on my own and how much I've relied on Amazon or other formats is time. The underlying thing that you're really addressing in all of these things is not only a learning curve of time, but then how much time it actually takes to, to run your product through. That's the issue. That was the issue for me finally. That was finally my issue on it. But anyway, that's my comment. Do you have anything to say about that? I mean, do you think for you, you've got a system that works and it's pretty time effective, or how does that work for you with time?
Well, yeah. So I would maybe answer your question with a couple more questions. And so what part of that whole process did you think was the most time consuming, and what was the most prohibitive for you doing that? Like, was it just figuring out how to do it, or fulfillment, or?
The fulfillment part of it, and then also I did have some people dicker with me on the price, and I got tired of that real quick. But it basically was, and also another thing was the inventory issue. I like the fact that I like POD, and even when I do book signings, do a pretty big book signing in Boulder, Colorado, or did before the pandemic, a couple of times a year. And I like the fact that I can just basically, ship the stuff out there and be done with it. I don't keep a lot of my books here, So the time factor was people's problems one way or another up front. Then and the shipping part, initially figuring out the website. My website's pretty easy to figure out as far as ordering and setting all that up. And then dealing with the issues like the returns or that kind of thing too. That began to be just so much more that I thought I could throw into marketing instead. And I have a formula for setting my book price that gets me about half of the price of the book on Amazon. So I just thought it's just not worth it. That was my thing. But you've got a system that's better than mine, I'm sure, or what I haven't gotten to.
Well, I mean, I don't know that it would necessarily be better than yours. And I think what you just said is the same thing that everybody else needs to go through when they're thinking about this. Do the benefits outweigh the challenges? Is my time, am I going to make money by the time that I'm investing in this? And so your time is worth something, and you need to put a price tag on that. And if you're spending, more time on this per week, and you're not making what you're worth, then it may not be worth it. I personally have I have a dollar amount on my time. My time is worth something, and I don't do anything that drops my dollar amount below that time. So if I'm doing fulfillment and I am not making that limited, I'm not making that amount that I've set on my time, then the challenges outweigh the benefits, and I would probably rather just go with print on demand. And so once you get past the technical hurdles, when you get everything set up and running, you're going to have a significant amount of time invested up front. But then once you get that done and it's implemented, then that's pretty much gone. You don't have to sink any more time once you get it set up. With occasional updates, or maybe adding new products or something like that, but that shouldn't take much time. Fulfillment is probably going to be the big one and the main one, because you can't really shrink that time. Every time an order comes in, you have to get the book, you have to put it in an envelope, you have to print a label, you have to seal the envelope, or whatever else you're doing with that product. Putting a thank you card in, you have to, take it to the mailbox or take it to your post office. Like, that's the time that you really can't shrink down. There are some services that make that a little bit easier, as far as like, your purchases go through and you can use a service to immediately just print the label and all of that good stuff. But, that may save you 10 minutes or 5 minutes, So if fulfillment was your big issue or your big time sink, there's not going to be a whole lot of processes that solve that, because you're always going to have those. You just can't do much about it.
I did not consider, and this will be my last comment, I did not consider the data mining. I'll tell you that. So that is something that I want to rethink, because I didn't consider the time factor versus the data mining. And as I go through my data lists and my email list, which is how I sell a lot of books, and it's shrinking, with doing less personal book sales events and things, then I did not consider that. So that is a factor I think that I will look at, and I appreciate you mentioning that, because that I didn't consider. So thank you.
Yep. Phil.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you're doing your own fulfillment, do you use your actual home address, or do you work through a post office box?
I use my home address, but if you're concerned about privacy, you can always just get a post office box. Either one works.
Does that make you less professional if you're going through a PO box, I wonder?
I don't think so, but that's just my opinion. I order a lot of things online. Half of our consumption or more is done online,
Right.
and frankly, when I order something from someone, I don't even look at the label. Like, I don't even care where it comes from. I don't know about you guys, but it does, in my eyes, I don't think it makes you more or less professional if you use your home address over a post office, over an office address. I just use my home one, and that's what my business is registered to. And yeah.
Okay.
Anything else from you?
Yeah, I don't know if this applies or not. There's such a thing as an S Corp, and it's just how you want to organize yourself as a business. Do you have to deal with that?
My business is a single member LLC. You can do S Corp stuff. I'm by no means an accountant or know a lot about that stuff, but I don't think that has any play on either addresses or whatever. That's just a legal entity for tax purposes.
Yeah.
That doesn't have, that doesn't have a whole lot of implications with, the amount of sales tax or whatever that you need to collect, or, anything like that. The only, the only thing, I guess, if you were a nonprofit organization, you may get out of collecting sales tax. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
See,
How do I take my hand off?
I think you just click it again, or there you go.
Okay.
Michelle.
Hi, can you hear me this time?
Mm-hmm.
I am okay. My questions have a little to do with you and Gordon, what he talked about last week. I have brain problems, function problems due to PTSD and ADHD, and of the trauma I encountered as a child, and that's what I'm writing about. And I'm doing quite well, I'm doing really well in regards to that. I'm writing my novel, which was suggested to me by Tom on my 2 memoirs, and I'm halfway done with the rough draft, and I'm now starting the second part. But and I have 150 books sitting right here of To Hell and Back. That is a really, really good book, and it's real written because I had a lot of help, and God brought that help to me, so I know that that'll happen. I don't have to stress about it and overwhelm myself about it, but it's like I want to do so much. And what is your suggestions? Just focus on completing this novel, and then try to sell the books I've already got, because I'm doing really well in my community, getting known, and I'm getting a lot of good response. I'm in touch with a bookstore in a little mountain community, and she's reading my book. I'm fixing to start back to a community of women that are business entrepreneurs, and I've got, I know there's so much I can do, but I don't know where to start, and I'm very limited on how my brain can handle all this. That's my question.
So you have 150 copies of the first book that you wrote, like
second book. It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, my first book is decent, but yeah, the second book is really good.
And where did you go to print those copies? Did you go through Amazon or an independent printer?
Amazon, and I published it on Amazon. And the format, I know I have y'all to help in my formatting with this book, but hey, I think I did pretty good on doing it all by myself with a little help from 2 people.
Okay. And so your question is really like sales oriented. You want to know, like, how do you get some sales? How do you sell the 150 books that you have? Okay. So
an easy way that my brain can handle right now.
Sure. Yeah. So having physical books, that really all comes down to kind of what we're talking about here. Like, you're going to have to do the bulk of the work to sell those physical books.
Hey, I can do that.
All right. So
I'd enjoy it. It's just what the sequence is, and the money. I got the time.
So I would, and I'll let other people chime in, but my ideas for selling physical books are your first start with your sphere of influence. Okay. So the people around you that know you personally, you can just, market to them. You don't have to be salesy or whatever. You can just be proud of what you've created and say, I've got 150 copies. I want people to be able to read this because I know it's going to have an impact. So start with your sphere of influence. Then what you already mentioned is what I would go to next. I would go to events. I would go to local bookstores in your area that you can get to. A lot of
Okay.
times they'll take books of local authors, or maybe they even have a shelf, a specific place that they do local authors.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do some consignment deals for you where they'll take 5 or 10 copies of your book and, keep them for a few months and see how they sell.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm working on.
Yeah, so keep doing that. You're doing the right thing there. Like, I know I'm not really for sure where you are, but it's wintertime where I am, and so there's not a lot of in-person events like I'm
Right.
thinking like craft festivals or church
Right. Yeah.
events. But in the springtime and the summertime, those are probably going to be your go-to events. So like craft fairs, festivals, book events, local author meetups, LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, or I mean, I guess even Facebook for that matter, would be good to connect with local author groups around you and see if
Okay.
there are any events that those groups are putting on, that you could attend. I don't know the format or the style of your book, but a lot of times churches will do, Bible studies or have different studies on different books or whatever. So you could start making some calls to different churches and see if they would be willing to take a look at your book and maybe do a Bible study, or if they have, a men's or women's Bible study or whatever around that. It's all going to be
Okay.
kind of in your hands when you take on the challenge of selling your own books, to kind of get out there. And that goes back to the time involvement that I was talking about. It's a significant time involvement to sell your own books, because you have to make the calls, you have to go to the events, you have
Right.
to do all of that stuff. So I'll maybe just open it up for people that have different ideas for selling your own books locally for you. But those would be my ideas
Okay.
up front.
And then maybe after I get this novel finished, start when I have more time to spend on what I'm thinking about, then start on websites and how to do stuff online.
Hmm.
That's what I'm thinking I should do.
Well, if you're printing your books through Amazon, you already have a kind of an online presence because people can buy them
Yeah.
on Amazon. So
Right.
you can direct people to your author central page on Amazon or your book listings on Amazon. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Landon.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me that physical book storage should be addressed, especially if you're doing your own fulfillment and you're not using print on demand. Then I need to make sure that the books that I'm sending out to my customers are crisp and neat and not mildewed and that kind of stuff. Any thoughts on, the best way to handle that? So I was thinking that if I don't have a good storage area at home, then maybe it might be worth the cost to put it in, get storage. Those self-storage places where they control the humidity and air and all that good stuff.
Yeah. That's definitely a consideration. I may go out on a limb and say if you don't have storage in your own house to store 50 to 100 books, in the corner of a room or something, and fulfill them, you may not, self-fulfillment may not be the option for you. You could buy storage and stuff, but that's just added cost.
Right.
And storing 100 copies of books in a house, that's relatively clean, you're not going to have issues, with that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you don't have the storage facility in order to take that task on, self-fulfillment may not be the option for you. You may just stick with print on demand and call it good.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
One of the things I've done both, what we're talking about. The thing that bothered me about Amazon is what you said earlier. They don't send you anything. They put your customers in their email list and they send out, I don't know, last time I heard it was like 12 million maybe more than that, emails a week, different emails. But what I did is I made a squeeze page so that when people, I sold the books on my site with a direct link to Amazon because I didn't want to handle everything. But when they clicked on that to go to Amazon, it took them to a squeeze page where I thanked them for considering my book and asked them if they would give me their email address so I could keep them up to date on new books I was writing, things like that. What's your opinion of that kind of thing?
I think that's a great idea. It's kind of a hybrid model, and if you have the technical aptitude to do that, I think that you should be doing that. Anything that you can do to gather data on your customers before they go into the Amazon ecosystem where you don't get any data is a great idea. At least an email address or something along those lines where that you can follow up with them later, with an email that says, hey, if you bought my book, great, I want to thank you. Here's what I'm doing next, something along those lines. But yes, that's a fantastic idea for a squeeze page or a landing page or something like that. I think I saw Shimreet's hand go up maybe earlier.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest you can go to your local library. Sometimes what I did was I gave the head librarian my first book, and she absolutely loved it. She purchased it from Amazon and put it she didn't put it in the local authors shelf. She actually put it on the new releases shelf with all the big authors.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's how much she liked it. So, and then I asked her if I could do an author's meet and greet and book signing. And she said, yeah, that would be great. So, going through your library, your local library, can be a great thing.
That's a good idea. I never really thought about that, but yeah, that's a really good idea for exposure. Just kind of piggybacking off of that, there's a lot of different places that you could go, to do stuff like that. I'm thinking, schools are kind of wonky right now, but maybe, you do like a local author thing at some school. So you could, encourage budding writers or whatever. Maybe they'll allow you to take some copies of your books in there. I mean, I think when you're thinking about selling your own books, the challenges of doing it yourself are kind of an opportunity in disguise because the sky is the limit for some of that stuff. Like I didn't think about taking it to a library because, you don't really buy books at a library, but someone who finds your book, they obviously are going to know your name, and then they're going to go search you up on Amazon and buy some more of your other books, if they like you. So it's a great idea. Does anybody have any other questions before I hit the last couple sections here? Got about 10 minutes or so.
Not a question, but a comment.
Yep.
I think I probably shared this with some. But one thing that works pretty good, it's not very glamorous, but it's garage sales. And you can go to, I don't know about you guys, but where I live in the springtime, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are just loaded with garage sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can go to the owner of that sale and offer him $1 a book on any that you sell, because he's selling everything for 10, 15, 20 cents, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it is, it works especially well with children's books, because while mom and dad are looking all over for their stuff, the kids would wander over to me and I would show them my book and talk to them. Next thing I know, they're pulling on dad's coat saying, hey, I want that book, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about the psychology of that. If I was there buying something for myself and my child wanted something, it's kind of hard for me to say, no, you can't have it. And
Yeah.
but the other thing is you meet an awful lot of people at those garage sales. You'll meet teachers. You may meet other authors. Um, you can have a sheet out there for email addresses.
Yeah.
It's a low cost, good thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another idea that I didn't really think of, is either selling at your own garage sale or going to friends' garage sales and asking if they could, you could set up a little box or stand or something like that. Yeah, that's a great idea. So what are the considerations when you're doing this? Just a couple points that I jotted down here. How many books do you have, and in what formats are they? So self-fulfillment, if you have, like Gordon, if you have like 100 books, self-fulfillment may not be the option for you, because you're going to have to store at least, 20, 30, 50 copies of each one of those books to do self-fulfillment. And that times 100 different books, it's just not reasonable to do that. But if you have 2 or 3 books, or less than 5 or whatever, then maybe, it's for you. Do you have other items that you can sell with your books? Do you have upsell items? A lot of writers are also makers or crafters. And so can you partner things with your books to make it more attractive? What are the expenses that you need to consider when you're looking at self-fulfillment? Either hiring a web designer or taking the time to do it yourself, paying for other platforms or services that do this for you, or some of the other expenses that you would need to consider when you're doing some of this stuff is definitely something you need to sit down and put some pencil on paper to figure out. And just like Kim was pointing out, I think one of the biggest things to all of this is, how important is it to you to own your customer data? To me, it's imperative. It's imperative to own my customer data, because you get the ability to know who they are, and you can create products around who are already coming to you. If it's not important for you, bye Sherry. If it's not important to you to necessarily own your customer data, and you're content with staying in the Amazon ecosystem and just playing in their ball field and by their rules and selling books, and you've seen success doing that, then self-fulfillment may not be for you. I don't know, but I'm in groups with plenty of authors that only write Kindle books. They don't sell any physical books. They don't do it themselves. They strictly sell through Amazon, and they sell hundreds of thousands of books per year. And they make tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars as a profession doing that. And to those people, I would not even touch self-fulfillment, because they're successful doing that, and it would just be a burden to what is already working for them. But for the majority of us, if you're not there yet, which I am not, then self-fulfillment, if you can, make it happen, is just another avenue of revenue, just another revenue stream. So let's talk about real quick, how do you do this? What are some of the practical implementation steps that you need in order to do this? Well, you have to have a platform in order to sell your stuff. That comes in various shapes and forms. There are really 3 different platforms that these kind of come down to. The first one is going to be basically a platform that is either your website or an all-encompassing platform that acts as your website. So we're thinking here like the WordPress WooCommerce site and shopping cart. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform with e-commerce. Shopify is another all-in-one platform with e-commerce. All of those platforms allow you to create a website with an e-commerce solution, shopping cart solution, fulfillment options, customer service. All of those are turnkey platforms that allow you to do that. There are learning curves to them. You will not be a WordPress WooCommerce guru if you put 10 hours into it. You will not be that. It will take time for you to learn those platforms, but that effort will pay off in the end if you do take the time. The second category is kind of like a platform that plugs into your existing platform. So let's say you already have a WordPress website. You can add WooCommerce to that. That's your shopping cart, that's your platform, or you can do other sorts of platforms that plug into that. The ones that I know of off the top of my hand are Samcart, which is a shopping cart. Samcart plugs into your existing website. It's a self-hosted shopping cart, which basically redirects them to a couple of your products, makes the shopping experience really easy, and then redirects them back to your website when they're done shopping. Constant Contact is an email marketing platform, but they also have some e-commerce options. MailChimp, you probably have heard of MailChimp. It's an email marketing platform, but they also have MailChimp stores, which allows you to plug in to your website. Square e-commerce. Square is one of the largest payment providers on the internet. They have all kinds of different options for payments, but they also have an e-commerce section which allows you to list products and get people to check out and buy. So those kind of plug into your existing platforms or your existing website and allow you to sell products. And then the third type is really kind of like a self-contained platform, almost similar to Amazon, but they are their own platform. And so you sell your products on their platform. You don't really have a website, but you may have like a page on their platform where you sell your stuff. The ones that I can think of offhand are like Gumroad. They allow you to sell digital products on their platform. Etsy is probably the biggest marketplace aside from, Amazon or maybe Google Shopping. Etsy is a self-contained platform. You can sell all kinds of stuff on Etsy. Physical products, digital products. You get your own store on Etsy. You can send people to your Etsy store from your website, but it's its own thing. It's its own self-contained website where you have a shop on Etsy. There's a lot of different options that are like Etsy, Sellify, or heck, even eBay. You could sell your products on eBay in a buy it now sort of listing, and I'm sure people sell hundreds of thousands of books on eBay every year. So those are their own self-contained platforms that you sell your stuff on, that you can send people to, and the orders come to, go through that platform, come to you, and you fulfill them, and they have customer service and shipping options and stuff. So those are the three platforms really that break down. I know we're kind of running late on time here, but if you have any questions about selling your own products, if you're leery about jumping into it, or if you just don't know whether or not it's going to be worth it, I would love to answer some of those questions for you guys about maybe some technical issues or how to set that up. I would encourage you to look into it. I would encourage you to research it yourself, put some figures down on paper to see if it's going to be worth your time, if it's going to be worth your expense. To do it yourself, whether you have the ability to do it yourself and learn what it takes to do it. And if you do, you can do it and see how it works for a year. And if it's not worth your time, like Kim experienced, if it's not worth her time to do it, well, you're not obligated. You don't have to continue selling your own stuff. You can buy 20 copies of your book and work through that. And if you don't sell 20 copies of your book, in a year, well, then you got 20 copies to give away and you can be done with it. So any last minute questions before we go, or suggestions, comments, criticisms, jokes?
Well, you haven't mentioned audiobooks, and I'm wondering what, maybe for another meeting, we can discuss if people are just wondering how to get an audiobook going and what that involves.
Yeah, I didn't really touch on that. because mainly there's, Amazon really has the monopoly on audiobooks. There's not a whole lot of options to do self-hosting of those things. It's pretty difficult. And, like I said, honestly, anyone who's going to buy an audiobook immediately goes to Audible. And I'm not saying that that's good, but there's just not a whole lot of options to compete with that.
Yeah, and it seems like it's like a major production that you have to go through, even down to voice talent.
Right.
That people will want to listen through an entire book.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe sound effects.
Yeah, there's a lot of production. If you want to have a good quality audiobook, there's a lot of production that goes along with it.
Amazon does have a company that does audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, I don't think so much anymore, but you used to be able to contract with the person doing the book that they got a percentage of the sales, and there wasn't any money up front. So I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but it's a good thing to check out.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it because I've not done audiobooks myself. I know their ACX platform allows you to partner with different people who would be willing to record and narrate your audiobook. I don't know what the costs of that are. Like you said, whether or not you can work out a royalty deal with them, or if you have to pay them up front. I'm not really sure how all that works out because I haven't done it, but maybe somebody else does.
Okay, I was just wondering. I considered this a couple of years ago, and my best friend had a great voice for radio, but COVID got him, so he's not able to do it anymore. So I'll just table that idea.
So I'll maybe ask this last question before we have to go. Is anybody on the fence about doing this? Is anybody interested in doing it, but they just don't know like whether or not they want to do it or not? And if you're on the fence, what questions or what would push you one way or the other?
I don't sell anything. Everything I do is commission. But from what I've gathered, if you don't have a subscription list large enough, people don't know you exist. It's basically the marketing end of this whole thing. You can have a website and do independent and try to sell your books and everything, but nobody knows you exist or nobody knows where that site is. You're not going to sell anything.
Yeah.
So you need to set up some kind of following before you can actually hit that landing page to sell your first book. And I've seen that being done on Facebook and LinkedIn and the rest of the social medias, but they take the time to establish that first, to get their lists built before they actually start their books to sell. I mean, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on. It's kind of a chicken and an egg issue because if you don't have a list, how do you get that list without giving some offer or providing some value? And if you have a list, but you don't have products to sell people, then, how do you get value from that list without selling them anything? So yes, I mean, it all basically somebody's going to ask a question and the answer is always going to come down to marketing, right? Like 90% of things come down to marketing. And so if you're going to do this, you're going to have to do your own marketing or have already been doing your own marketing and have something to sell to them. So they're kind of tandem. If you're going to self-fulfill, you need to have a marketing plan in order to get some eyes on it.
And if you don't like the word marketing, substitute it with readership building.
Tom hates that word.
Well, I only hate it because most authors hate it.
Yeah, I hate it too. I don't like it.
Okay, well, Landon, thank you so very, very much. It was a great session. And everybody have a great day, a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.